On November 17, 2019, 26-year-old Marshall Iwasa visited his mother, Tammy Johnson, in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. That night, he helped his mom with tech problems for a few hours. Marshall informed his mother that he needed to retrieve an item from the storage locker he had been sharing with his sister for the past 6 years. The locker was in the Northside industrial area, located approximately 15 to 20 minutes away from his mom's house. His mother urged him to stay for the night, but he insisted on leaving since he had been renting a room from a local family and attending school in Calgary. Unbeknownst to his family, Marshall had stopped attending classes a while ago. Sadly, this would be the last time his mother would see him.
I walked him down to the door, and I said, "I love you, Mash." And I hugged him and I kissed him.
Keypad records showed that Marshall had indeed tried to open his storage locker several times throughout the night. Marshall kept trying to open the storage unit. It was a quiet and lonely place. His cousin Cassie Iwasa said in an interview that the yard of the storage unit he was trying to enter closes between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. Marshall did not in fact have this information. After he gained access to it at around 6 a.m., he then stayed there for a little over 2 hours. Even at 8:30 a.m. on November 18, 2019, he was still around. But after that, no one knows what happened. It's like he disappeared into thin air. The mystery lingers, and the quiet industrial area holds its secrets tight. One question lingered. What exactly did Marshall want from his storage unit that he spent the whole night trying to get into it? Cassie brought light to this as well.
So he needed a box for a piece of his computer. So he built his own computer. He was a computer guy. That's what he was originally going to school for. And he needed to send a piece away because his computer was broken.
On the 23rd of November on the Felix Creek Trail between Pemberton, BC, more than 1,200 kilometers away, a group of hikers stumbled upon Marshall's charred truck.
Hard to know what exactly we thought. I mean, there was a lot of confusion at first, trying to understand what we were looking at, and then a little bit of, worry as to the fact that we're seeing passports and smashed cell phones. And
the vehicle was found in a heavily wooded area near the trailhead leading to the Brian Waddington hut. James M. Stark, one of the hikers, shared the first few pictures of the truck and his statement on the South Coast Touring Facebook group on November 26, 2019. Had a crazy experience this weekend trying to get to the Brian Waddington hut. We took the 4x4 trail all the way to the trailhead, and when we arrived, we came onto quite the scene. There was a burnt-out pickup truck that smelled very fresh. In addition, there were possessions thrown all over the area, including 2 passports, 3 smashed cell phones, a smashed laptop, ID cards, toiletry bags, and clothing. It felt like a crime scene and had a very eerie feeling. We turned around and left, deciding not to hike to the hut, with the fear of walking into something. Obviously, our whole group was thinking about the Canadian manhunt from the summer. We called the police and reported it. I thought the community would like to know before anyone drives 4 hours to a trailhead only to be turned around. Marshall's mother and sister were in Hawaii when they received a call on November 26 from BC RCMP, British Columbia Royal Canadian Military Police, asking if they knew where Marshall was. They were told that his truck had been found in a remote area of Pemberton, BC. Police didn't elaborate on the circumstances. I didn't realize how crazy it was, how it was like burnt out, and I don't think I imagined that, but we definitely knew it was weird for his truck to be there without him there. Paige Fogan, the sister, initially thought that Marshall's truck had been stolen, and that Marshall would probably find out soon. Once I got the call, I ended up calling my cousins and Marshall's friends and asking if any of them had talked to him, she said, asking if they knew where he was. Lethbridge is pretty small, said Fogan. Marshall's family in Lethbridge immediately began searching for him there. No one could track down Marshall, nor could they locate anyone who had recently communicated with him. In a bid to gather information and assistance, Marshall's family swiftly took to social media. Within 3 days, the Find Marshall Iwasa Facebook page materialized, becoming a virtual hub for concerned individuals. The group now boasts over 12,400 members. Then began the speculation. You have to fill up gas if you're driving that truck. So what's to say it was Marshall driving that truck up there, said Paige Fogan. Weirdly enough, the entire steering wheel compartment was missing from the truck. We confirmed that RCMP did not take it, so it was always missing, said Fogan. There have been enough instances where authorities were able to extract crucial DNA evidence from various samples left on a steering wheel, and this has led to a lot of cold cases being cracked as well. One such example was that of Danny Ross Giles, a convicted who emerged as a key suspect in the 1995 murder of Patty Berry and the simultaneous disappearance of Tracy Brazel. Investigator Jim Scharf conducted several forensic tests that revealed a potential link between Giles and Berry. Allegedly, Giles' DNA was discovered mixed with Berry's on the steering wheel of her car, reigniting the investigation into the long-standing and haunting case, which ultimately resulted in Giles' arrest. So, it wouldn't be wrong to say that whoever committed a crime would have tried to hide it. But if this was actually a homicide case, wouldn't the killer have wanted to burn all the evidence alongside the truck? So why then were all of Marshall's belongings scattered around the crime scene? The details became even creepier as the days went by. The photos taken by the hikers and those taken by the RCMP had a lot of differences. Marshall's brother-in-law described the differences in a TV interview.
We have a bunch of items that used to be in the box that are now spread out, broken, and it looks like water ice poured on it. Things are strategically placed or broken. Some of it's just completely removed.
The crime scene definitely had been tampered with. This just can't be marked off due to works of nature. Someone did actually go through the crime scene and destroy or dispose of the items that might have incriminated them. Another thing to point out is that Marshall had seemingly packed a bag at some point with all of his clothes, which were found at the scene. This meant Marshall was most likely headed on a trip right after he left the storage facility. Marshall was known to keep his truck rather organized. Additionally, there were quite a few items that were never located on the crime scene, which included his phone, laptop, camping bag, and his wallet. But the biggest mystery was that Marshall's car was 14 hours away from Lethbridge, and for the whole route, none of the CCTV cameras had any footage remaining of the incident, as after 7 days, all footage is automatically wiped. There are no pictures or proof that Marshall traveled to Pemberton. Also, when looking at his financial records, it shows he didn't buy gas along the way or make any purchases anywhere else. This raises the question, who drove Marshall's truck to Pemberton? Was this an abduction? The RCMP preserved the items, but nothing was tested. We don't know whose DNA is up there. We don't know whose fingerprints are up there. They just have the items, but they aren't running them, said Fogan. Lethbridge Police Sergeant Saska Van Halle said during a press release that the initial search was made more difficult due to the intense terrain and poor weather, such as heavy snow. After that, the LPS along with BC RCMP carried out an exhaustive search of the remote and mountainous area where Iwasa's vehicle was found, approximately 50 kilometers north of Pemberton.
RCMP in British Columbia were the ones that conducted all of the ground search. They did everything. They did an underwater search because there was a small creek. They did helicopters and dogs and ground search for multiple days. I think it was like 5 or 7 days. The Pemberton RCMP were the ones that conducted that.
Afterwards, the LPS had this to say. The evidence cannot be DNA tested by the RCMP crime lab unless officers have reasonable grounds to believe a DNA-designated criminal offense has been committed. At this time, no such evidence or grounds exist. Authorities told the Border about Marshall going missing, and they checked, finding out that he hadn't entered the US legally. They also looked into pawn shops in Canada, but nothing was found. Even with searches by Marshall's family, BC RCMP, and private investigators, there was still no trace of him or his things. On December 4, 2019, BC RCMP said they had to stop looking because of melting snow.
I'm not a police officer, so I don't know how it works. But I do know that he is trying, and it's ongoing investigation, so they're not going to give out details, and they shouldn't.
Several details and information regarding the case have been kept secret from Marshall's family, and that's all because of a Missing Person Act, which doesn't even allow the police or the family to access it.
In Canada, it's a Missing Persons Act, that is limited. It's made it impossible for Paige and I to get any information, and it makes it difficult for even the police to get information.
The investigation then moved to Lethbridge Police Service. On May 22, 2020, they used cadaver dogs to search the truck site and around it, but found nothing. Another big search in BC started on June 24th with Lethbridge Police Pemberton RCMP and 15 search and rescue people. They used a helicopter and vehicles, and ground searches were done by RCMP private investigators and Canadian Search and Disaster Dogs Association members. Another very questionable bit by the police was when they ignored the fact that the items at the crime scene did not belong to Marshall.
There are items up there that I've identified that are not Marshall's, and so that's frustrating, for us to hear that they don't believe anyone else was up there, because there are items that are definitely not Marshall's that were at the scene.
Marshall's sister, Paige Fogan, visited Marshall's house in Calgary. She discovered that Marshall's Xbox and PlayStation were still there, and realized that the consoles found at the scene did not belong to Marshall. Marshall's family was well aware that he loved to hike, but he was not necessarily a solo hiker, which meant that Marshall would not have gone to the trail on his own accord.
He's not familiar with there, and all of the hikes that he's done, he usually goes with friends and family. Right. Like, he's never really done these hikes on his own. So he's not like a solo hiker.
Every detail surrounding Marshall's disappearance is suspicious, but the gas situation raises eyebrows. Despite media coverage, there's no record of Marshall, and with his distinct appearance and truck stopping for gas along the way, Fogan, Marshall's sister, finds this lack of information concerning, stating it should be enough for the police to consider it a criminal case. Marshall's family has also had to deal with frustrating theories of what might have happened to him.
We've kind of been told that one of the theories that they're working with is either that my brother had driven his truck up there, and had either got lost or had succumbed to the elements, or had went up there to commit suicide. And you don't do those things with your steering column, and that is extremely frustrating to know that that's been a piece that's been missing since the beginning, and they were aware of it.
Fogan emphasizes her family is open to all possibilities. During the initial search weeks, mild weather prompted worries about Marshall being exposed to the elements. Fogan considered scenarios involving hypothermia and wildlife, but was told that in the first few nights, he could have survived despite discomfort. Lethbridge ranked number 1 in Canada on Crime Severity Index in 2021, while other reports claim that Lethbridge had the highest rate of opioid-related offenses in 2021, at 124 per 100,000 population. So it's not off the table that Marshall might have been a victim of a criminal offense.
Most of the crimes affecting Lethbridge included fraud and drug offenses, as well as burglaries, trafficking, and manufacture of illegal substances. Is it possible that Marshall found himself tangled up with the criminal element in the area?
Marshall's family had initially wished to visit the site sooner, but were advised to wait until the police concluded their search. When they eventually got the chance in early July, with the assistance of 4 Low BC, providing 4x4 vehicles for the challenging terrain, Fogan expressed confidence that Marshall was not at the scene alone, if he was there at all. Earlier concerns about the site's danger had led to the suspension of the initial search.
Solidified it for me, essentially, that I don't believe Marshall would have taken his truck up there, not on his own choice, if he ever was even up there.
Okay.
It was so hard to get up there, she said, emphasizing the distance and struggle of getting to the site, which took them over 30 hours. The private searches arranged by Marshall's family have only strengthened Fogan's conviction that Marshall is not at the location.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, I can confidently say, I don't believe that he went up there on his own choice, or maybe was never even up there. And so that's why I feel strongly that we should start looking into different locations and different things that might have happened to him, and primarily push this into a criminal case.
Right.
With this growing certainty, she emphasizes that it's high time to explore other possibilities and formally treat Marshall's disappearance as a criminal case. We hired a PI team who organized the last search that happened in Pemberton on the site, and the amount of resources that they brought in make me feel very confident, and they have also expressed that they're very confident. Had there been a body up there, they would have found it, and their trained dogs would have found it, she said. So we can now say, okay, Pemberton Mountain, there isn't a body on that site, so now they need to look at other options. They thought that they would find him come spring or when they did the search, and now they've not found him. So now they need to start looking at other things. One significant hurdle in Marshall's case is the failure of the RCMP to conduct a fire report at the time of the discovery. Despite the incident occurring in November, there was no effort to investigate the source of the timing of the fire. The search with the RCMP fire investigator, conducted several months after Marshall's disappearance, marked the first time the police looked into the fire that destroyed Marshall's truck. Results from a private fire investigation that the family did by themselves indicated arson, which meant Marshall's case would become a criminal investigation.
So the family hired their own team of forensic investigators and got an answer back.
Yeah, it was arson.
As of the 14th of August 2020, Marshall's family officially filed a petition to manually push Marshall's case so that it becomes a criminal case. We shouldn't have to push this hard to get these types of answers, she said. Marshall's family is also concerned about how the system handles a missing person in Canada. It's so easy for these cases to get swept under and to just get overlooked or passed off as self-harm, suicide, or getting lost. It's so easy for that to happen, and there needs to be some kind of systemic changes happening to how missing persons cases are handled, said Page. One theory suggests that Marshall was involved in a drug deal of sorts. This idea was facilitated by the fact that Marshall had just recently paid off his truck, but his family could not account for what he'd been doing for work. It's crucial to remember that storage units are often notorious hotspots for storing illicit substances. These places are viewed as neutral ground due to surveillance, allowing items to be discreetly moved to and from the units. In a long-distance transportation of such items, concealment devices are commonly used to avoid suspicion if stopped. Hollowed-out electronics like Xbox and PlayStation shells found in Marshall's truck are frequently employed. Coolers also serve as another common tool for concealment. While the case still remains unsolved, we urge our viewers to reach out to the concerned authorities with any leads you might have.
And I have comfort in the fact that I got to tell him I love him and that I got to kiss him goodbye.
Their details will be given in the description below. And if you'd like to help out with the Marshall family and their petition, a link for that will also be available in the description. That's all for today. Subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this. See you in the next one.